Drop it on the random.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of That Time in Hip Hop, a podcast about the nostalgia, the history, but more importantly, the preservation of hip hop music and culture. I am your host, Vegas of Hip Hop Now Podcast. I got with me, as always, the homie Tone from IntoTheDome.com. What's good, bro? Happy New Year, by the way.
Hey, happy New Year to you, good brother. Sipping on some water today.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. I had some wine, but as you can see, it's kind of just been up there, so I might finish it, I might not, man. But I do appreciate people who have been tuning in and checking out the show and leaving comments and sharing it, whether you're watching the video version or you're listening to the audio version. Is all love. But we need those likes, we need them comments, that feedback. We need them subscribes. And more importantly, if you really enjoy this show, share it with people would enjoy it also, because that's the thing. That's what we do, right? You know what I'm saying? We go see a movie, is really good. What we do, we go tell the homies like, yo, you saw such and such yet? Yo, you need to see it. So it's the same thing here. It's just that we don't have the same budget. That's the difference. But it's still just as potent as a movie or your favorite hip-hop album or what it may be. So it doesn't matter. So make sure to do all of that. Like, subscribe, everything, all of that. Share it with people enjoy this kind of hip-hop content. We like to do this thing, called This Week in Hip Hop. And since it's 2019 and we into a new year, we got a couple of shows under our belt. On January 6th, 1996, I believe it was 1996. Let me make sure, fact check. Yeah, boom. Yeah, 1996. Busta Rhymes released his first solo single, because remember, he was with Leaders of the New School, but his first solo single, Woo-Ha, in January of 1996. Several years ago, nobody knew where it would go, whether Busta would succeed or fail. Tone, the first time you heard Busta Rhymes, no Charlie Brown, no Dinko D, just Busta by himself. This is the lead single, Woo-Ha. What did you think about it?
Well, we anticipated something good. He had the energy with Leaders of the New School. You saw him stand out. Just like Chuck D and Dr. Dre said earlier on, that it was something special about Busta Rhymes. And I think most people figured that. After you heard Scenario, you was like, the song is legendary on Low End Theory with Tribe Called Quest. And, I was like, well, you know what? I can't wait to hear some of that dude. We didn't know much about him. I mean, Leaders of the New School was kind of known, but still kind of underground, like the little brothers of the native tongue. So hearing that, the energy, the beat, was intoxicating. And, again, I was glad to hear it, man. I was anticipating after that how his debut would sound and what he would be in hip hop moving forward, man. So I felt real good about hearing it. I thought it was a good song. I knew it was more to come. I mean, to me, he didn't disappoint, man. The energy was there. It pumped in the clubs, you pumped it in your car, and Busta Rhymes was on his way.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. The first time I heard Busta was with Leaders of the New School. I saw the video first. It was just another case of the PTA.
Yep,
Leaders of the New School song, and it's something new. So you like, well, what's this? And the visuals was really dope for that video. And when Busta came on, he just kind of roared on, like literally. And you kind of felt like, damn, who's this cat? You know what I'm saying? Because he had the voice, he had the cadence, he had the energy. And I remember, that single and Sob Story, sold me.
Yeah, Sob Story.
You know what I'm saying? Straight sold me. Obviously, also the Scenario joint, but made me go and buy the album. And I remember, I just instantly was gravitating towards Busta. Like, I couldn't wait for his parts, because it was like how Sticky Fingers was in Onyx. You always knew that when they got to that person, even if everybody else's joint was dope or was good, it was always going to be something special when Busta started rhyming. And when I first heard Woo-Ha, I ain't gonna front. I was a little kind of on the fence because I'm like, maybe he's not good by himself. Because I didn't dislike the record, but it was a little too goofy for me. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't what I expected from Busta. You know, it felt like they were. I almost felt like, are they getting ready to destroy what's dope about him? Because you know he had already done a bunch of dope stuff, but it's easy to be dope when you got one verse. You know what I'm saying on a song. It's easy to stand out.
You know what, Meg? I think I feel you on that point. As far as like you didn't want the label or whoever to kind of make him a character of himself.
Exactly.
Like not too goofy and corny. You know what I'm saying? Because you knew he was raw. You saw him on Scenario, so you knew he could spit. You know he had the energy and he gonna stand out. I think that was kind of way like kind of like fast forward decade later, almost with Eminem coming out partnered with Dr. Dre. You heard My Name Is, and it's like, wait a minute, man. You know this the dude from Rockers. You know what I'm saying, spitting with them spitters. You know what I'm saying. Now you got this goofy MTV. Whatever, but I know it was business first, then he can get back to stand and get back to I don't give a F and all that, and he was really rhyming. So I think with Busta, the same thing. Wu-Ha was just kind of like, to draw people in. Of course you can turn people off too, but you're trying to draw people in, and then all of a sudden, bam, they did that second single for his debut. It's a Party with Janae, and it was more laid back. I'm like, oh, okay, he rocking with Janae. The slower flow is dope. And then it goes back into more singles and guest appearances, and then we get that Busta that we thought was gonna get.
Yeah, and I think because like even with that, I like that joint with Janae, but I still kind of felt some kind of way because I believe I don't know if that was the B-side or just the second single, but the joint that made me comfortable and made me buy the album was Everything Remains Raw. When I heard that, I was like,
that's the one.
Oh, there go the Busta.
Yeah, that was the one.
So I kind of was like, and a lot of people forget about that record, which is crazy. But Wu-Ha grew on me over time because I liked the beat, and then I kind of got, like you said, I kind of got what was happening. And then I loved the remix with him and Old Dirty. I felt like it was perfect, a perfect pairing, a perfect person to be on that type of record. So the record kind of grew with me, or grew on me.
Yeah. Let me say this as well. Like, and I know we're using this in the show today to discuss Busta and his first single, but it's funny because usually with my favorite MCs, I go back and make a best of. I make a T. Haynes best of, Ice Cube, best of Nas, best of Tribe, or whatever. So it's funny, babe, when I made my best of Busta years ago, Wu-Ha was not on it. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't make my best of because, again, Busta Rhymes real quick is a very underrated MC with a lot of great songs. Not just the songs that you see on videos, which those are great songs, but he has a lot of great album songs that a lot of people never heard. Yeah. So when I made my best of, I generally use about 15 tracks. And Wu-Ha just wasn't one of them. But I respect the fact that they was trying to be creative and bring him out and draw bigger. Because I don't think they want him to come right out and be a underground artist. You want to Busta Rhymes to be a star. Yeah. So Wu-Ha and play and as far as like songs like that and performances like that, was to bring more people in because Busta could have easily ended up being Rampage. He could have easily ended up being what's the guy's not Redman, of course. It's another guy, No Flow on the Rodeo. Remember that dude? King Just and people like that. Of course, Busta is talented, but you can get lost in the underground because hip hop at that time was introducing so many great MCs. Yeah, and so they were trying to be creative with him, I believe, and get away from the leaders of the new school and trying to keep him from not being in a box. Because Busta has always been very creative, and you couldn't contain him. So Wu-Ha was wild. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that was kind of something they wanted to probably depict him with his energy anyway, man. So,
and it was also representative of his style because also you had his verse on the Flavor in Your Air remix where he was totally different from anything he had did with Scenario and Leaders of the New School. and it just showed that Busta is stepping in his own lane. So I think I got a greater appreciation for it. Definitely once the album came out and the remix and all the things that kind of supported, I guess, what they were trying to do with Busta. And then, as we know, the first album was more of an experiment of, what is Busta? What does a Busta album sound like? And then with that follow up, when the disaster strikes, is when he was out of here. Like once that "Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See" dropped, it was like, oh, okay, Busta is everything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
absolutely,
he can do it all. We might have to do a show on Busta Rhymes. Just the simple fact that he doesn't get appreciated as much as he should be. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, it's well deserved.
Yeah, a lot of people forget, man. But leave your comments in the comment section below. You know what I'm saying? What did you think about the Wu-Ha record when it first dropped? You know what I'm saying? Were you a Busta fan before that? Was this your introduction to him? Whether you liked it or didn't, whatever the case may be, leave your comment in the comment section below. Yes, we do read comments and we do respond. So do that. Now we're going to get into the meat of the show. And if you read the title of the show, and if you look back here past the wine glass, you see we're talking about absolute undeniable classic, still like fine wine. I listened to it today. It still gives the same vibe even to this day. Tone, let's get into it. Let's tell the people what we're here to talk about.
You know what? When you first emailed me and reminded me about what the topic was going to be, I immediately threw it in the car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And let me say this before we even get into it. Most MCs who have a stellar debut, it's very hard to follow it up with something on the same level or even better. So when you have a classic debut album, a lot of times people think you fall off after that. Even if your next project is pretty solid, you're almost cursed by having a dope debut. And Ghostface Killer had Iron Man. Iron Man is one of the best Wu-Tang solo albums. So most publications gave it a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 rating. So coming after that with Supreme Clientele on February 2000, it was vital. Not only just vital for New York hip hop, but vital for the Wu-Tang's legacy. And we'll get into that as well. But just hearing Supreme Clientele, it took me back to the mid-90s, to grimy, just creative hip-hop that the Wu was doing. And honestly, if Supreme Clientele didn't hit the way it hit, not sure where we'd be at right now as far as the legacy of Ghost or the Wu-Tang Clan. But nevertheless, me hearing that album, vague, I was like, wow, he followed it up. I think he might have surpassed Iron Man. And it had a lot of replay value. And I contemplated and I debated, like, did he beat Iron Man? Because Iron Man is it's a hard act to follow. Raekwon couldn't follow Cuban Links. Did ODB really follow Return of 36 Chambers? Did Jizzle really follow Liquid Swords? Well, you can debate the Jizzle second and third albums. They were solid, but it wasn't Liquid Swords. You know what I mean? So Ghost put a stellar and then followed it back up, and I think he actually outdid himself. And what I mean by that is, MCs grow. And I said this with Nas, it was written following Illmatic. I said he was more polished on It Was Written. A lot of people like to debate me on that. I didn't say it was better, but he was a better MC. So Ghostface was a better MC on Supreme Clientele. It's 4 years after Iron Man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So my first initial reaction, man, was like, wow, it sounds like classic RZA. It sounds like classic Wu-Tang. I was very pleased with it. And also, Veg, it came at a time. So listen to this. You had Volume 2 Hard Knock Life, DMS's Dark. You had the whole Rockefeller and Rough Rider movement starting to really take its course in 98, 99, while Ghost was actually writing Supreme Clientele. So it's Supreme Clientele dropping in 2000 was post Jay-Z DMX, pre 50 Cent Kanye West. So he kind of got caught in the middle of two different eras of hip hop, and he was very solid. And I believe a lot of people took RZA's production from Supreme Clientele and some of that soul sampling, and then you start getting your Blueprints, you start getting your College Dropouts, you start getting the Little Brother, the Listening, and a lot of your Slum Villages and things of that nature. I think you start getting some of that based on Supreme Clientele. We'll get deeper into the album, man, but I was so pleased hearing it the initial time, man. What was your thoughts when you first heard Supreme Clientele following Iron Man and the state of the Wu-Tang at that time?
Well, for me as a fan of the Wu, like when Iron Man came out, like, well, first of all, let me just start from the beginning for people who don't know. When 36 Chambers was out, I wasn't a huge Ghostface fan at all. You know what I'm saying? I liked Can It Be, but I wasn't a big fan of his. Obviously Method Man stood out for everybody, and RZA and Inspector Deck and all of that. And Only Built for Cuban Links made me like Ghost even more. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't huge on him, but I dug him a little bit more. So my anticipation was a little high for Iron Man. You know what I'm saying? I think it was almost too high because I was looking for it to be a sequel to Only Built for Cuban Links, which I don't think it was. So I loved what was there, but it was just more like I like this album. I'm not crazy about it. So when I heard that Ghost was working on another album, it felt like what you say was like 4 years.
Yeah, because Iron Man came out in '96 and Supreme Clientele came out in 2000.
Yeah, that's crazy. It almost felt like I forgot about Ghost. You know what I'm saying? And the Wu was already, to me, starting to feel like, well, I think that run is up. You know what I'm saying? Because it just, like you said, there was a couple of projects that came out that wasn't hitting in the same way. It was like the streak was over. You know what I'm saying? And I remember I had saw, and I'm going to use that image, the other image that they didn't use for the album cover that's similar to this. I remember seeing that in a magazine and like, damn, Ghost finally coming out with another album. I don't know, man. Like the Wu ain't really hitting like that. What is that going to sound like? And I remember I looked at the cover and I was like, man, this just looks like, our hero's about to fall off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I remember reading the article and Ghost was like, he's going to get with RZA to try to bring back that traditional Wu feeling because he felt like collectively as a group on solo projects and collectively they were straying away from what got them where they were, which was a specific sound. And I remember that kind of had me interested because I'm like, well, shit, if you're going to do that, I'm here for it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And at the time in 2000, I was hosting Strictly Hip Hop and Be More, one of the longest standing hip hop programs, if not the longest, where the Wu first got their shot in Baltimore, Morgan State University. Shout out to them. But I was hosting it, right, in 2000. And I had been hosting for like maybe a year by then. And I remember when the album came and, we would do these sessions like, yo, we got this new Ghost, we be in the studio. This is way before the show. And we would just listen. And when I tell you, like, you know this because this is universally a hip hop thing. It don't matter where you are. But if you by yourself or you with the homies and you going through track and you listening to a classic, because every song, everybody like, oh shit. Just collectively, no one's there saying, hey, everyone, let's head nod all at the same time. No one's saying shit like that. Dudes are just feeling it like, oh, yeah, yo, what's the name of that? You know what I'm saying? Through every record. And I just remember as a host and producer, I'm sitting there like, man, I'm playing that shit. I'm playing that. I'm playing that. And I just remember kind of being blown away and feeling exactly like we said, feeling like, yo, I think Ghost, along with the assistance of the RZA, are bringing the Wu back with this album. You know what I'm saying? And it was just incredible to hear it. You know what I'm saying? And back then I knew it was a classic like the first time I heard it. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, again, you had 1997 forever. So Wu-Tang had a long run from 93 to 97 of
Yeah,
dropping a lot of classic material back to back. And so then you have Iron Man in 96. People got to remember, Wu-Tang Forever came out in 97, double
hmm
CD. And again, like I always say, to me, each member was more polished on Forever than they were on 36 Chambers. We're talking about 4 years after their debut. So yes, they all had solo projects in between time for the most part. So they were better at song structure, lyrics, everything to me. You know what I'm saying? And Expecting
yeah,
That to me just went crazy on Forever. But that's beside the point. So did Ghostface. Everyone sounded great on Forever. But I thought that was going to be their last hurrah. They double CD. They've had their run. They got 2 albums. They have all their solo joints. I think that's it. They did their
hmm
world tour. It got quiet. I'm like, well, maybe the Wu is over with. Jay-Z is popping right now. DMX, and Master P, and all these people, popping. The South is popping off real hard, and we only a couple of years, really away from Luda and T.I. and all them really popping off. So I was like, well, maybe Wu-Tang's gonna go into the underground now and then stay there. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? With their core fans. And then Ghost come out with this. And I remember buying this joint at the record store. Like you said, a classic has a feeling to it. So I'm riding in the car and I go down the track list, then I put it on, and it's just me looking at it right now. You got the intro, have the little Marvel Tony Starks in it. Then you got Nutmeg, One, Saturday Night, Ghost Dini, Apollo Kids. All of this stuff is back to back. And I'm like, do we have a classic on our head? You know what I'm saying? Did I get all the way down to, Malcolm and all of that? And I'm like, yo, this is, Ghost did it, dog. So I just drove around. Anytime I play a classic, I drive around a little long. I take the long route home. You know what I'm saying? So I can pump it in the car and get that feel of it. I'm by myself. So I'm trying to do the knowledge, man. And I tell you, it had that feel to it, man. And going back real quick, doing the recording of 98, 99, people didn't know if real Wu fans didn't know what was going to happen because Ghostface got locked up at one point during the recording of the album. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So between 98 and 99, Ghost did like 6-7 months for like a 1995 gun charge. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people didn't know that. So they
hmm
got stifled a little bit. During that same time, a lot of fans might remember RZA losing a lot of his beats. I think he had some accident at his home or something like that. And same
yeah,
thing happened to Q-Tip years during that same time. And RZA had to go back and make, like he said, like 200 new beats. You know
hmm
what I'm saying? So you have RZA dealing with what he dealing with, making new beats again. Ghostface locked up, and then when he get out, Ghostface and RZA end up taking a trip to Africa. You know what I'm saying? So they get there, and rumor is Ghostface wrote most of Supreme Clientele in Africa. That's why he got some consciousness on there, as opposed to him kind of either one being deep on some family matters on Iron Man, and then flossing some on some Tommy Hill, Pick a Polo, kind of how they were him and Ray on Cuban Links. So
yeah,
songs like Malcolm give you that knowledge of self type thing. He got some joints on there where it kind of remind you of mid 90s Wu, but he also had a lot of tracks where he would throw some consciousness and some black power here and there, and he wrote that in Africa, man. So, you know what I'm saying? So that just put a nice spin on the way he diversified his subject matter and his lyrics.
yeah. And I think one thing that I started to feel around that time, like after Iron Man, after the Wu-Tang Forever, and like you said, there was a lot more just going on. Like between Iron Man and the Supreme Clientele, like the releases of them. You had the East Coast, West Coast stuff. You had all these new cats. You had Cannabis come along. You had
Yeah.
all these big things like take the spotlight of hip hop, and the Wu was kind of falling in the background because, like we said, it was almost like the hits wasn't coming the way they used to.
Oh
And
yeah.
one of the things that made me like buy into that easily wasn't just the product of what was coming out as far as like solo projects after Wu-Tang Forever, but I started to think about the boot camp click, because I started to feel the same way. I started to feel like, yo, why are Wu-Tang members stepping away from that sound that got them hot?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like why? That's why we love y'all music, because of that sound, because of the way y'all rhyme, what y'all talk about. And for Ghost to just bring that back, he literally saved the Wu. You know what I'm saying? Because it literally felt like it was over, because Method Man, Tikal is what it is. It's not a terrible album, but it wasn't what we expected. But that sequel to Tikal was just not it. You know what I'm saying?
No, it wasn't.
And like you said, Liquid Swords was such a monster by itself, and ODB album. It was just like they had a hell of a run, and then there was just all these changes in hip hop, and the Wu wasn't really a part of that. You know what I'm saying? They didn't really have a voice. So for all that to be happening, especially cats making more money in hip hop, and then Ghost just comes up with something that sounds new but sounds familiar to what you're used to hearing from the Wu, it was just like, damn, I would have lost the bet if you would have told me Ghostface would be the one to basically, save the Wu. You know what I'm saying?
And you know what? Check this out. And you know what? To your point, babe, what's very ironic is when the Wu-Tang first hit the scene, Ghost is the guy who you didn't see because he had the mask on and he was invisible, basically. And then all of a sudden, you fast forward 7-8 years, he becomes from invisible to actually the face of the Wu-Tang. I think he became the star MC of Wu-Tang in 2000 when Supreme Clientele dropped. And this is saying a lot because at one point, Method Man was the face of Wu-Tang at the beginning with his singles and with his look and flow and flavor and voice. I mean, he had the little it factor thing at the time. And you fast forward 7 years, and this Ghostface who saves the Wu-Tang legacy because, again, Supreme Clientele had a perfect blend of hard tracks. He had the club bangers, that Sir Lagos or whatever, however you pronounce that, and that popped in the clubs for months and months and months. You had Apollo Kiss is the first single, you know what I'm saying? So you had that perfect blend right there. The album sold almost 140,000 the first week, which was really big for Ghost, and it ended up being a gold album. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and Ghost set off the second part of his career with that album because you end up getting the Fish Scales and the Bulletproof Wallet and all of this stuff, Pretty Tony. You get all this because you might not get some of that potent work if Supreme Clientele don't pop off. And you have Ghostface being successful in 2000, like you said, right after, this is 2 years after a big resurgence in New York hip hop, the whole raucous movement with most different high-level quality Black Star. You got, of course, you got Cannabis. We didn't know how large he was going to get. It ended up getting stifled, but at the time, you got Cannabis. You got DMX, of course. You have Noriega, who became a big star at that time. You have Big Pun, who becomes a big star at that time. You still talking about another transition in hip hop with the South growing up. We lost Biggie and Pop during that time. Big L died that a year before that, in 1999. L got killed. You know what I'm saying? So you had a lot of changes, and Ghostface in the middle of, like I said, in the middle of the Hard Knock Life to the Kanye West college dropout of 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. Ghost is right there in the middle, being successful, representing the Wu-Tang, a banger from track one all the way to the end. I mean, what can you say, man? I mean, Ghostface did it, man.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Oh, one more thought, babe.
Yeah. I
said something about 50 Cent. So, you know that skit on Supreme Clientele that Raekwon did was an answer that Clive Smith or something like that was an answer to How to Rob. When he said, I rob those girls and all them for their funny rings and all that stuff like that, whatever. Ghost kind of took, issue with that and said something in the interview about it. And, this is during the rise of mixtape and hardcore 50 Cent, who, he's about that life, and he's actually the only MC to ever on wax go strictly at Wu-Tang and really name them. You know what I'm saying? Like he did some freestyles on mixtapes at that time, and he said their names. He called them dust heads. You know what I'm saying? And whatever.
Yeah.
He really insulted the Wu-Tang. But before that, Raekwon had dissed him pretty much on Supreme Clientele, and this is kind of funny now looking at 50 Cent becoming the man just about 3 years after that. But yeah, man, it was just one of them things where, oh yeah, and also, do you remember that the track when he said something about Mace? A lot of people don't know that allegedly there was an issue where, and I think I wrote something down. He said, "Yo, Sham punched Mace in his face over some bullshit the other night." So I mean, he talked about jacking Mace up. You know what I'm saying? This is a year or two after Puffy and Mace was again Puffy and Mace was large.
Yeah,
from
that was
97 to 98, they was large before Jay-Z took it with the Hard Knock Life and X with his Dark. But yeah, man, the album had a lot of character to it with the 50 Cent situation, the Mace situation, and a lot of the alleged things that happened with some of the lyrics. But man, I don't know, man. I was just so pleased with the album.
Yeah, like you said, man, it was a lot. It was a lot there. I think as a whole album, especially at that time, hosting and producing a show and trying to find my way as far as how to program this hip hop show so that people really want to tune in. Like every week or so, another song would just go into rotation. Like One and Nutmeg off the rip was in rotation, heavy rotation on the show.
One might be my favorite song on the album, man. It's like right there, One and Malcolm.
It's perfect.
Those are my two probably favorite, along with We Made It. I like We Made It a lot too, man.
That's the crazy part. I can literally go down this track listing, which is about 20 tracks mixed in with some skits and songs, and damn near every record saw some form of rotation on the show. Oh, and we're talking about over a span of a year, probably, if not more, including Malcolm and Child's Play. All of that, like you mentioned, like even the crackhead skit was hilarious. You know what I'm saying? And I think the best line on the entire album does not come from Ghost, but it comes from Redman when he says, "Your weed got more seeds than ODB." I could not stop laughing.
Right.
That is one of the most funniest yet, like, obvious but not obvious lines you can come up with. And for those people who don't know or lames or don't get it, Old Dirty Bastard has a lot of children. You know what I'm saying? Right. Some people refer to their children as seeds. You know what I'm saying? If you get bad weed, it has seeds in it. You get it. Your weed has more. Your weed got more seeds than ODB. It was just dope. And the fact that Redman was a feature that fit perfectly with the Wu and that sound.
Always.
Wu posse track. You know what I'm saying? It was just an album that, even listening today, I felt like I was asking myself the question, okay, what is it about this album that really got to people? Because it can't just be, it's a bunch of dope beats and rhymes. It got to be more than that. And I think you touched on it just by giving us the insight of going to Africa and writing certain records in Africa. And you kind of get that because one of the reasons why it was so easy for me to put several songs in rotation, Child's Play is totally different from One, which is totally different from Nutmeg, which is totally different from Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? And it's from Wu Banger. It's just so many different sounds that sound good as a complete album. And you would think, like, it's because I always say, I don't need that many tracks. But this album doesn't feel that long. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel like you're going through 20 tracks of skits and songs. And how can we forget, above all of that hip hop and thought process and writing and stuff, he also had a radio hit with the Cherchez La Ghost joint, which is literally a Wu-Tang version of what a party record would be.
Right.
And I remember we even played that, and we played that before the commercial radio stations got a hold of it, and it became a part of the rotation before the video and all of that. it was just one of those things where if you had to look at Ghostface's career and say what's his best album or what was his peak, it was definitely right there in that Supreme Clientele time, because lyrically, you know, his charisma, you know what I'm saying, the gold bracelet with the big eagle on it, you know what I'm saying, the robes, like Ghostface
Yeah,
wasn't
he
only,
was in his power. He was like Ric Flair at that time. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, man,
He had the heavyweight title. You know.
exactly, like he had more than the Wu on his back. You know what I'm saying? He had
Shaolin on his back. You know
he
what I'm
had
saying? So,
Shaolin on his back. He was bringing people back down to earth and saying, "Yo, this type of hip hop still matters and it can still be dope."
and you know what?
Yeah,
Another point too is this was also the first time after forever that RZA was so involved in the Wu-Tang project, because they started having Mathematics and a lot of other guys doing a lot of the beats. You know what I'm saying? So RZA had about 7 or 8 songs on Supreme Clientele, and that was actually the last time in the history of the Wu-Tang that he was that involved with a Wu-Tang project. I mean, he was on the bill for Cuban Links too. He was, I think, the executive producer, but he only did 3 or 4 songs. He did like 8 on Supreme Clientele. That was the last time he produced that much on an album. So it had the RZA feel to it, but also probably my favorite song on there was done by Juju from the Beatnuts. You know, so a lot of people don't understand that the Beatnuts, they weren't just dope, I think, Puerto Rican MCs, but they also were dope producers. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So they made a lot of dope beats, you know what I'm saying, in the mid 90s, man. Go back and look up the Beatnuts for anyone listening who aren't really up on the Beatnuts. Check them out and check their production credits out too. It might surprise you. But Juju from Beatnuts did a hell of a job with one. You know what I'm saying? And just real quick, man, Malcolm is a track I still keep on repeat a lot. I mean, it still sounds fresh. The album still sounds fresh. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you know, I don't even know what else to say in terms of if you're listening and you haven't heard Supreme Clientele, you need to catch up. You need to put that on and do the knowledge on that. If you have heard it, but it's been a minute, you need to throw that back on because it might stay in rotation again, man. So I do have a question for you, man.
Hold up.
Okay.
One other point
Okay.
to what you said that I meant to mention this while we were talking about it is RZA was somewhat responsible for in some ways, and not totally, because he can't help that he's not being used for some albums, but he was somewhat trying to change or advance, and you saw he tried to continue to do that later, the Wu sound. And one of the things that is kind of old every time we saw articles about beef within the Wu was the group, you know, feeling like, yo, we don't need to change or advance the sound. The Wu is what it is, and it should be this. And so much so that, you know, albums in recent years have kind of been better, you know, when it's not RZA. So the word on the street is that Ghostface, whatever Wu-Tang album they come out with next, you know, Ghostface is in charge. Rightfully so, because if there's anyone who knows what that sound should be, it is him. You know what I'm saying? But what were you going to say? What was your question?
To your point, absolutely. And I think Ghostface deserves to be the executive producer of this next Wu-Tang album whenever it come out. And other people might think, oh, why would you say this? I hope the next one is the last one. I hope they put everything they have in it as a group and have Ghostface kind of lead the charge on the production side as well. Because if you look at it, Iron Man, Supreme Clientele, and people keep forgetting, Fish Scale was very dope.
It really was.
No, so Fish Scale got like a 4.5 in Rolling Stones, you know what I mean, or something like that. So, I mean, it was another big album. Then outside of that, he had a lot of other, you know, dope projects. So he has the most dope projects in the Wu-Tang. You know, for anyone who might think Ghostface is not the best MC in the Wu-Tang, that's fine. He's the best artist. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like someone else is a better rapper in Wu-Tang, that's fine. He's still the best artist. You know what I'm saying? Out of Wu-Tang, is the most dope songs, the most dope albums out of anyone in Wu-Tang, excluding nobody. You know what I'm saying? I don't even think that's a real debate, but if you find out you want to come on Twitter or Facebook and debate me, please do. But I don't think it's close. So yeah, man. I mean, that's kind of where I am with it. But I was going to ask you two things. One is Supreme Clientele better than Iron Man?
To me, yes. I think
Okay.
I think well, you know what it is. When obviously I love both, but it's kind of like you said, the Illmatic. It was written story, the Low End Theory, Midnight Marauder story, where it's easy to say the one that came afterwards is better because the MC got better and they built upon what was already there in an already dope album. I feel like Supreme Clientele is just more complete to me as a album from beginning to end. Um, and it's way more different looks than like I expected. Put it this way, like a lot of what I hear in Iron Man felt like only built for Cuban links, which isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Supreme Clientele felt like Ghost planting his flag. Like, no, this is me. I'm the only one on the cover. It's features on the album, but this is all Ghost as opposed to, like supporting cast to make you feel like he still has that anchor from Only Built for Cuban Links.
Yeah, I agree. It took me a long time to come to that conclusion because initially I was so stuck in '90s hip hop that I thought that Iron Man was better. I thought it was a little bit better. I thought it was more raw. It still had that grungy basement RZA.
Yeah,
And again, like to your point where you said it sounds like Cuban Links. Well, if you think about it, Ghost and Ray co-starred on Cuban Links and on Iron Man, and it could have been a double CD. Cuban
yeah,
Links and Iron Man could have been a double CD. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? It would have been incredible, but it could have been that. But Ghost was more polished. His subject matter was doper. I think his flow was even better because Ghostface kind of showed out on Forever as well. So I think that. So let me back up. I was going to DC a couple of months ago. Me and my partner, the homie, and we put in and played Iron Man all the way through. And then we played Cuban Links, I mean, not Cuban Links, Supreme Clientele all the way through. And my homie was like, dog, Supreme Clientele a little bit better than Iron Man, man. And I was like, you know what? I agree. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's better. And I guess my second and last question in regards to the album to you is, where would you rank Supreme Clientele in the great solo albums of Wu-Tang?
yeah. I thought about this, man, and like we said, that run of debut albums was just like they couldn't miss. So I would I would probably say for me, as far as favorites, I would probably say it's number two. I would put Only Built for Cuban Links number one because it's something about that album that's just ingrained in me. It's so memorable, so more like Supreme Clientele, like you said, with everything that was going on, there was a lot going on. There's just people who missed it. You know what I'm saying? Only
Yeah.
real hip hop fans was paying attention to this album, and maybe later on they got up on it, but Only Built for Cuban Links, like even the skits are classics. You know what I'm
Everything about
saying?
it.
Everything about it. Shark Biters, the different beats, like Knowledge God, Incarcerated Scarfaces. Like it's just a certain vibe that comes with listening. Even looking at the damn album cover just
Yeah.
lets me know, like, man, when I hit play on that shit, you know what I'm saying? And even the intro. But what about you, man? What is this your number one? What number would you put it at?
Well, Cuban Links is number one, and for most of the reasons that you shared already. And I actually have Cuban Links as one of the top five hip hop albums of all time. Some
Mm.
people agree, some might not. It's a movie to me. For any listeners, check out our very first episode. We actually do it on the Bill for Cuban Links, and we go into very great detail about this album. So, to start the way it started, to end with North Star, it's the best one to me. I actually think Cuban Links is better than 36 Chambers. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I would say that's number one. Now, number two, I'm always debating with myself with Iron Man, of course, like I said, Supreme Clientele, Liquid Swords. Um, man, Liquid Swords was probably the album I played the most in '95, believe it or not. I played that album and The Roots Do You Want More and Millions Worry About Pop all the time. But I'm going to say I will put Supreme Clientele in the top three. And that's saying a whole lot because that run was one that no group had a run like that. And, you know, we talk about Boot Camp Click and other guys who had other groups that had a lot of dope albums, but nobody had a run like the Wu-Tang run. And some will say Tecala's dope. You know, I thought it was dark, basement, grungy, and I think it's dope. But yeah, so I would say Supreme Clientele is in my top three of probably Wu-Tang projects, and that's saying a lot, man.
Yeah, and what's funny is if I had to make it three, Liquid Swords would be in my top three also. So it's amazing how, you know, the 36 Chambers is a classic, and these dudes were able to drop solo albums that we can literally call classics also. That's almost impossible to do. You know what I'm saying? Like to maintain that energy from 36 Chambers and build upon it with solo projects, you know what I'm saying? And being smart about your business with teaming Raekwon and Ghost together.
Yeah.
Because I think that helped Ghost a lot, because I think there was interest in a Raekwon solo album, but I don't think there was any interest in a Ghostface solo album.
He was still a mystery at the time.
Yeah, he was such a mystery, and he didn't stand out as much as other MCs lyrically. But he grew up with that Only Built for Cuban Links. People really started to dig Ghostface, man, because like a lot of the quotables from the skits and stuff like that are coming out the mouth of Ghostface. You know what I'm saying? On Raekwon's album.
Yeah.
Which is dope, man. But you know, for the people watching this, leave your comment in the comment section below. Where do you rank Supreme Clientele in all the Wu solo projects? You know, is it your number one? Is it not even cracking your top five? Leave your comments in the comment section below. We'd love to know, you know, what your answer is, because I don't think a lot of people think about that. You know what I'm saying? I think we just think about the classics and we just kind of keep it moving. What happens when you start to pit them against each other? That's when it gets real interesting. But we got to the point in the show where we're going to recommend something you should go back and listen to. For me, it's an album that dropped in 2001, highly anticipated, probably since the late 90s. Probably took too long to come out, but came out at a time where every rapper, for the most part, seemed like they were dissing each other. It even contains its own diss record on it, featuring DMX. It's Jadakiss's debut album, Kiss the Game Goodbye. When this album dropped, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do with myself. You know what I'm saying? Jadakiss and the Locks were off the whole shiny suit thing. You know what I'm saying? I already heard Show Discipline and Put Your Hands Up. And I'm like, yo, this album's going to be incredible. But there was a lot going on around that time. There was a lot of hip hop. Everybody was fighting for hip hop lyrical supremacy. And Jadakiss dropped an album that didn't necessarily, to me at the time, meet the high expectations. I think a lot of that came from it taking a little too long to actually come out. But when you go back and listen to it, you appreciate it, given the fact that the follow-up albums never did as good as this one as far as a collective. Maybe some of the skits could have gone. Some are funny, some really aren't. Kind of take away from some of the songs that are there. There are some choices there, song-wise, or like maybe beat and concept or conceptually, that don't hit as much as others. But when you look at the totality of the album and think about the anticipation and whether he met it lyrically and beat wise, it's there, man. You got the Styles P collabos, you got the, you know what I'm saying, you got the Primo, you got everything. You got the Nas and Jadakiss collabo. You got almost anything you would want from a Jadakiss debut album, including a Beanie Siegel disc. It's a treasure that doesn't get cherished as much as it should be. And even when I went back recently to listen to it again, just to see how I felt, I was just like, damn, I need to listen to this more often because I had it. But Tone, what's your recommendation? And, also, what did you think about this Jadakiss debut album when it dropped?
Of course, highly anticipated. I enjoyed the Locks first album. Some people didn't like it. I thought you take 2 or 3 songs off Money, Power, Respect. It's a dope album. You know what I'm saying? And it has some crazy tracks on it. And that solo track, Squeeze the Juice, just made me feel like, yo, I need to hear more Jadakiss. So and then hear Reservoir Dogs and all this stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, dude is nasty, dope voice. On the album, man, Knock Yourself Out was a big single, man. I get it. It hit the clubs. I did like with DMX, the joint with Nas. But my anticipation was too high when it first came out, so I didn't love it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I thought it was solid. I thought it had a couple of joints on it, but I'm always big on complete albums, and I like if you have at least 10 dope songs on, I just think the album probably was okay. So I thought it was okay. In retrospect, it sounds better now than it sounded then to me. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no anticipation. I can kind of look at it a little different with no bias and no just, trying to compare it to so many other great albums coming out at the time. I think it was around 2000 that came out, and during that time I was on my Raucus and, Talib Kweli Train of Thought was out, and
yeah.
I was still listening to Most Def Black on Both Sides and, and all this stuff, man. So, Jadakiss it just wasn't enough at the time, but I thought his follow up hit the spot, that Kiss of Death. I think that's the one he found his pocket, man. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was better, but not mad at it, man. Good, I think it was a gold or platinum album, man. His name was out there. He was heavily sought for features, and rightfully so, man. Jadakiss is a dope MC. He still sounds dope today. You know what I'm saying? He actually hasn't missed a beat if you listen to him rhyme. You know what I'm saying? So 18 years later, dude's still dope, man. So salute the Kiss, man. My pick for today, and I know when certain people listen to this show, and especially people that know me and know the city I'm from, they're going to think I'm being biased. But this one is the homie Big Remo, album called Entrapment, came out in 2010. Now look, don't take my word for it. Google Entrapment and find and do the knowledge on it. You're going to be like, man, dude is nasty. The beats are hard. At the time, Big Remo was with Ninth Wonder. And so Ninth and his guys did the production. So it's hard, though, because I think the guy Crisis did most of the beats. Crisis thumped some of Crisis beats sound like Knots. You know what I'm saying? If you're familiar with Knots, who did stuff for Busta and a couple and Scarface. But Big Remo can rap, man. Dude got flow, dope voice. He's from the crib. I know him. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like I'm not bigging him up because I know who he is. I'm telling you, he's dope. The beats are dope. It's a track on there called Go. It's a track on there called Go Ladies. Oh my goodness, it's dope. A track on there produced by Young Guru from Rockefeller called Girls Must Mourn or something like that. It's pretty dope. So Guru got a track or two on there. I want to say the Justice League has a track on there as well. So there's some beats on there, man. Some rhymes on there. Yeah, big up to Remo, man. Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, man, and
check that out.
I think a lot of people really dig the recommendations because we come from different areas as far as our recommendations, not necessarily like where we live, but what we recommend. And it's really coming from honest places. You know what I'm saying? I remember a couple of people hitting me up about episode we did a couple of, weeks ago where I suggested Master P's Ghetto Dope. And, that ain't just to be throwing it out there. It's like, yo, you look at my iTunes collection, it's right in there, for a reason. You know what I'm saying? It's not just there. It's there because I actually dug it and I bought it. But so when we say, yo, you should go back and check this out. You know, it's at least worth a listen if you haven't heard it, or if you haven't heard it in a while. Big Remo, Jadakiss, go check both them joints out because it's about hip hop. It's about the love, man. But if you enjoyed this podcast, man, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, but more importantly, share with people you know enjoy this kind of content. You know what I'm saying? Please know that this podcast is available not only here on the YouTube service, but also in audio form on SoundCloud.com, which puts it in the stream where it's available anywhere. So it's whether it's iTunes, whether it's Stitcher Radio, now Spotify, iHeartRadio, literally everywhere. If you search Hip Hop Now Podcast, you'll find a podcast, and within that stream of my podcast, you'll also find this podcast, That Time in Hip Hop. And you subscribe and you can get the audio if you don't want to watch the video. It's all good. But that's going to do it for us, man. On behalf of myself, Vegas, of Hip Hop Now Podcast, and the homie Tone of IntoTheDome.com, go out and support real hip hop and tune in every time we drop one of these because you will learn. Believe that. All right.
Yo,
Peace.
peace.
Drop it on the random.